Greetings, this is Dr. Jay Gary coming to you from Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I would like to share with you an exciting project I'm undertaking over the next 10 months to strengthen the PhD in futures research. This is being made possible by a grant from the Prince Mohammed bin Fahd Center for Futuristic Studies and the World Futures Studies Federation. In 1975, the SIBA Foundation hosted a three-day symposium on the future as an academic discipline. 22 academics from Europe, Middle East, and America were summoned to London to present papers on the role of future studies as a transdisciplinary matrix, with a vision to strengthen future-oriented research and teaching within disciplines from genetics, economics, biophysics, psychology, and sociology. But despite incremental advances in future studies across these decades as captured by academic journals and associations, after 50 years, future studies remains on the sideline of higher education as an academic discipline in both applied research and graduate education. Why is this so? My aim as principal investigator for this research is to answer that question. I am an associate professor of strategic leadership and assistant dean of online learning at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma. My PhD was in organizational leadership in 2008. And my research and service have been first to validate a foresight style inventory for consulting futures through factor analysis. Next, to conduct a 2015 Delphi study of futures worldwide on certifying foresight professionals by 2030. I was a founding APF member and chair from 2018 to 2020. I helped develop the APF Foresight Competency Model in 2017 for organizations, and I presently serve on the Program Accreditation Council of the World Future Studies Federation since 2019. So what is our research focus? This study will examine PhD dissertations over the past 5 decades to determine, 1, how well has future studies developed as an academic discipline? 2, what contributions have PhD dissertations made to this field of practice? 3, how could the PhD be strengthened to ensure that higher education places a higher value on futures research? Our research approach can be described in 5 steps. 1, a meta-analysis to systematically examine future research dissertations since 1972. Second, we'll map these dissertations research across various disciplines using a matrix of future studies. 3, we'll conduct a global survey of academic futurists on the PhD in futures research. 4, we'll host a half-day symposium on the PhD in futures research to discuss the findings. And then 5, we'll distribute the study's results to advance future studies as an academic discipline. Here are 1/3 of the dissertations this meta-study will examine. You're looking at the files in Google Drive listed by last name, dissertation title, and year completed. Note, here's Hamrick's environmental scanning dissertation from Penn State in 1979 that defined the whole field of strategic leadership and environmental scanning as important to upper level echelons of leaders. So during the fall of 2022, each dissertation will be examined and categorized by my research associate and me according to this worksheet. Now, the top 3 rows are descriptive information such as author, title, dissertation, language, the discipline the PhD was earned in, abstract and keywords. But the bottom 3 rows is where the meta-analysis will be done to classify the research. For example, what were the data sources of this dissertation? Interviews, observation, archival documents. What's the research methods, qualitative, quantitative mix? What applied future method was used, if any? What unit of analysis this is applied to, individuals, organization, society? What is the theoretical paradigm governing this dissertation? Predictive, empirical, cultural, interpretive, critical, post-structural. And then components of foresight knowledge, the 4, and then contribution to future studies, an analysis, an interpretive analysis made by myself and my research associate. Now, here's how the 2003 theory of scenario planning dissertation of Thomas Chermak was categorized. Reading in the fourth row here, related to data and method, you can see here that uh, that the data sources were archival documents from organizational research. The research methods were mixed. The applied future method was scenario. The unit of analysis of organizational use of that. And the method and the paradigm particularly was predictive empirical. Now, this, in a sense, was addressed components, methods related to theories and frameworks, and the contribution was extraordinary. Chermak's dissertation aimed to build organizational theory based on hypotheses of how professionals use scenario planning to strengthen strategic decisions. Since then, he has published books in this vein to help organizations evaluate the effectiveness of the scenario processes. The contribution of Chermak's dissertation was relating future method, in this case scenarios, to organizational learning theories of how organizations adapt and how well they perform. Other dissertations will look at, like, for example, Stuart Candy's a decade later, for example, were less empirical and relate more to experiential learning related to design practices and foresight. Each dissertation will be classified and related to this matrix. Here's our research objectives. 1, evaluate 100 PhD dissertations in future studies produced since 1972. 2, obtain survey feedback from 60 academic futures and what constitutes rigorous futures research. 3, identify changes that must be made to enable doctoral candidates to produce the highest quality futures research. And then 4, establish a gold standard for futures research at the PhD level. Our research deliverables are: 1, a virtual symposium to gather input from 25 academic futures on best practices for doctoral futures research. 2, to present these findings at the 50th anniversary World Conference of the World Future Studies Federation in Paris. 3, to release an open access handbook for doctoral candidates who want to upgrade their approach to the PhD in futures research. And 4, contribute a multi-author article in a futures journal. Now, this PMU WFS grant to carry out this research will be used in this way: $3,000 for a research assistant, $500 for final report slides, and $1,500 for international travel. Thank you, Prince Mohammed bin Fahd Center for Futuristic Studies and the World Future Studies Federation for making this project possible to strengthen the PhD in futures research.